Welcome to Talkin' Shit, the podcast where we get real about the unfiltered truths women face in the quest for perfection. I'm Jana, your host, a dietitian and fellow woman navigating the pressure to have it all together, the perfect body, career, relationships, and making it all look effortless. Who set that standard anyway? Here, we're calling out the diet fads, hustle culture, beauty standards, and everything else that keeps us feeling stuck. But we're not just venting, we're diving into how to break free and rewrite the rules on your terms. So, grab a coffee or a glass of wine and let's talk some shit. Together, we'll uncover how to live a life that's unapologetically yours. This is Talkin' Shit. Let's dive in. Before we get into today's episode, I want to take a quick moment to share something special with you. If you're tired of dieting and feeling like food has more control over your life than you'd like, I want you to know there is another way. Inside my monthly membership, the Healthy Body Collective, women are losing weight and they're healing their relationship with food, balancing their blood sugar, and finally feeling confident and in control of their bodies again. This isn't about restriction, perfection, or quick fixes. It's about learning how to eat, how to support your metabolism, and how to build habits that actually work in real life. If you're ready for sustainable weight loss, calmer cravings, and support that truly meets you where you are, I would love to welcome you inside. You can learn more and join the Healthy Body Collective through the link in the show notes, or feel free to send me a DM on Instagram if you have any questions. Now, let's get into today's episode. Welcome back to the Talkin' Shit podcast today, everyone. I'm really excited about today's conversation and also find it pretty comical. So we are going to talk with Katie. She is another dietitian. You guys have seen a theme here. I'm bringing in dietitians so we can really share our expertise with you all and see how it's not just here's your meal plan when you meet with a dietitian. There's so many other things we can support you on and really talk through. So Katie, thank you so much for giving your time today. I'm really excited about the topic that we're going to talk about. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I've been super excited to chat with you and your audience. And yeah, it's definitely ironic that we get to talk shit about literal shit today. So fun.
So we're going to dive in. We're going to talk all things GI health, but this is something maybe people assume, or I don't know, but as dietitians, we often hear a lot about people's bowel movements and we literally talk about shit. It tells us a lot about your health as a whole. So Katie, where should we start with this?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to unpack with gut health. I think just so much pertains to it. So we can definitely break it down. I think the disclaimer I like to give to my clients when I start, at least, is how I even got into nutrition, which is being diagnosed with IBS at the age of 15. So basically did the whole ordeal of going to every specialist imaginable, went to the gastroenterologist multiple times, was put on like the low FODMAP diet, did the elimination diet. I tried being dairy-free, gluten-free, all of the things. It got to a point where I was using like an absurd amount of laxatives as well, and nothing was working, just was not able to go to the bathroom. And it ended up being just how dysregulated my nervous system was. And then in combination, getting an ADHD diagnosis later in life, how that really all tied it together, and how gut health is really not just about what you're eating, but also how you're treating your mental health and your environment and trying to regulate your nervous system and stress.
I love this conversation already. So I think we have a lot in common. I also had a lot of GI issues, particularly like through high school, starting of college. Went to GI doctor, went to primaries, all the things. I found out I was like severely lactose intolerant, and they said, "Oh, change what you eat, you'll be fine." There was like no education, no information. That's actually what got me curious about nutrition, and I learned so many things, and then ultimately changed my major. But there was such a lack of information, even in the dietary space. I'm really glad that we get to expand this conversation and share more about there's a food component to it, but it's so much more when we're working with your body and your health. So why do you add in that nervous system piece to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the times my clients present to me with similar case scenarios where they've felt like they've tried literally everything, or they're only consuming their quote unquote safe foods and they're still experiencing symptoms. And just from kind of examining their experiences, it seems like one of the biggest factors or culprits always tends to be poor stress management, or maybe not awareness of how much the mind gut connection or your nervous system really influences your symptoms.
Can you tell us more about that? This brain gut connection? Like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So essentially, your gut and your brain are in a constant feedback loop, and they're connected through your vagus nerve, which I'm sure your audience will remember from your previous episodes when you guys talked about the nervous system regulation and how that's an important aspect of your overall well-being. But basically, your brain and your gut are directly connected through your vagus nerve. It's a long nerve that's basically coating your spinal cord, following it from the top to bottom, touching on all of your essential organs like your lungs, heart, stomach, diaphragm, and then straight into your gut. And when we're talking about gut health specifically, it's more so on your large and small intestines where we have our microbiome that's often referred to. So, this is where all of those good bacteria sit within our bodies. Our body's actually a host of like billions, trillions of bacteria, and a majority of them are in the gut microbiome, which is like an ecosystem in a way. And your gut has so many essential functions, one being directly correlated with your mood, because 90% of serotonin, actually, which is our feel good neurotransmitter, is made within the gut. And then also, it's responsible for your immune system responses, the actual nutrient digestion and absorption. So they're kind of like the staff in a way. When food finally gets to your gut, they're basically filtering out, what nutrients need to be absorbed and set back into your bloodstream, and then what needs to be filtered out and removed as waste. They're also responsible for regulating like your hormones and inflammatory responses. So basically, in summary, they have a ton of different essential key functions. And with this pathway as well, being in like a constant feedback loop, your nervous system is directly kind of running the show between your brain and your gut. So this is all part of the enteric nervous system and why your gut is often referred to as your second brain, because with this system and knowing that it's a part of your nervous system, how we have your parasympathetic and your sympathetic nervous system, basically in layman's terms, your fight or flight response or your rest and digest. Essentially, whenever we're in our fight or flight response, rest and digest is not happening as it should be. So when you're stressed, anxious, or dysregulated, digestion can slow down and symptoms can occur like bloating, constipation. Food sensitivities can flare up, or it could be the opposite, where just like everything emergency exits in a way too. So maybe you've experienced more diarrhea or bowel urgency. This could all just be from maybe a subconscious level of stress. And the thing is, this system is pretty essential. Like, it's great, for example, if there's a fire alarm going off in your apartment, your body knows that it's time to be on alert and flee the situation, and it's not time to go potty right now. But on the contrary, say you're chronically stressed from work or kind of just disorganized with your tasks, or maybe home life's not that great, just whatever stressor is affecting you can keep you in that elevated stress response and in that fight or flight response, which can directly impact this pathway, thus impacting your symptoms.
There's so much to unpack here. And again, I'm just like so thankful we're having this conversation because here's what I hear often. And again, so this space, typically I'm speaking to more women, and I also see more women struggling with GI discomfort in general. And it also makes sense because I truly believe that us women, we do feel things through our gut, and we can be more sensitive. And I don't mean that in a weak way, but we're just more sensitive to a lot of things, sensory things that are coming into us. And it's interesting when I will ask individuals about their stress level, a lot of times women will say, I'm fine, or I'm okay. And it's always my opportunity to get really curious because if you are having these symptoms, if your body is talking to you in this way, this is one way that stress presents itself. It's completely different if you're like mentally able to deal with the load versus your body able to deal with it. Would you agree with that?
100%. I love that you brought up that aspect too, because I think we get accustomed to thriving in the chaos in a way, or we're not as aware of it, or if stress just becomes the normal, your body adapts to it. But that's also a way that these symptoms present. And I love that you brought up women specifically because we are just naturally more intuitive. And this pathway is also 100% a part of your intuition. Like this feedback loop is communicating with you through your nervous system before it really reaches your subconscious thoughts. So even when you get gut feelings like butterflies in your stomach when you're excited about something or maybe nervous or hesitant to make a decision, that's literally your nervous system communicating with you through this feedback loop.
Mhm. Okay, we haven't even talked about food as it relates
I
to.
know.
But so if someone's like resonating with this and they're like, yeah, I've done dairy-free, gluten-free, like low FODMAP, I've changed my diet, nothing works, then we want to get more curious about, okay, what else is going on, right? Like, so you mentioned that vagus nerve, which is always so fascinating. How do we get the body to just chill the F down if we're experiencing these things and we've made those dietary changes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's different for everyone. There are a lot of great tools that you can use on the day to day to start building up resiliency to stress. But I think one, like therapy is always a great option too, to really see what that underlying stressor may be. And I think for me and my personal journey, mine was realizing that I had ADHD because exploring why this IBS even presented itself. I was 15, was dealing with constipation on the day to day, like literally couldn't go to the bathroom for like a week plus and was using like enemas and laxatives and nothing was coming out of me. So I think that was a good indicator that this is definitely nervous system related, especially when I cleaned up my diet and was implementing exercise and trying all the things diet and nutrition wise, but the stress wasn't really addressed. And I think it's unfortunate too that specialists just kind of led me to like, oh, just take Miralax, maybe don't have dairy or something, but just no clear responses, which is why I actually ended up studying nutrition because I could not figure it out for the life of me. And then learning more about just nourishing the gut microbiome, which we can get into too. But that's when I think stress management came to play because, of course, going to college and studying this with college just being as stressful as it is, it just exacerbated itself. So going to therapy more and exploring what was going on with my mental health, learning that I have ADHD and got diagnosed with that at like 21, really put the puzzle together because that in itself was just a clear indication of a dysregulated nervous system and having a lack of dopamine and how that was affecting my mental health directly too, made it pretty clear as to why I was getting all these symptoms. So long story short, after going to therapy and learning all these tools, now I've learned a good, I guess, like toolkit of nervous system regulation tools or just stress management tools. So, to name a few, grounding has actually been a big one, even though that might sound a little woo-woo, but actually, like literally going outside and touching the grass or like hugging a tree, being in nature, because if you recall, maybe in like middle school when we learn about atoms and like positive, negative, neutral charges, we're all made up of atoms and energy. We're actually receptive to the Earth's electromagnetic field. And when we go outside and ground ourselves, it's actually teaching our body that we can regulate and calm down. And if you think about it too, when you're outside, feeling the fresh breeze, sun on your face, hearing the birds chirp, like it's generally a safe place. So it's teaching your nervous system that your body's safe, we can relax and be at ease. Another one too is breath work, especially with just the anatomy component. When we're taking deep inhales and exhales, it's literally stimulating the vagal tone because your diaphragm and your lungs are expanding and hitting up on that nerve. Another one too is humming, gargling, singing, chanting, even talking to yourself. I think this is why ancestrally in meditations they would do those drawn out ums or chants because that's literally stimulating your vocal cord, which is also creating vagal toning, which helps pull you out of that stress response as well. Another one is doing something creative. So whether that's like painting, doodling, drawing, doing a puzzle, something that's activating that other side of your brain, because whenever we're doing something creative, it's almost impossible to be in a stress state. Movement is also a really great one, exercise, because when we're sweating, we're literally sweating out cortisol or stress hormone, and then we're getting a dopamine boost from that, an endorphin boost that's helping just regulate and release stress within the body, or just mindful movement as well, like yoga, stretching, walking, dancing, just any type of movement, because we know that this your body can also hold on to stress and tension as well. I think another good one too is affirmations or prayer. So, with affirmations specifically, we know that this pathway is directly impacted by your thoughts as well. And our subconscious mind is prone to thinking the same things on the day to day if they're not addressed. So, if we're constantly talking to ourselves through a negative lens, we have to implement something to start to change that. So, by practicing positive statements like, I'm safe, I trust my body, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I've literally told myself that before, like, I'm going to be able to poop.
Yeah.
Uh, but literally programming your mind to be cohesive with your body as well. And it's almost like getting a song stuck in your head where the more that you listen to it or repeat it, the easier it will come to you more naturally. I'm trying to think if there's any more, but I mean, could definitely keep going, but I'll spare you for now.
Think there's so many great options, and I love it's always interesting. So when we can really bring these interventions or practices, I should say, into someone's lifestyle, I'm always amazed from that mood or mental health component, how anxiety and depression also lessen themselves on the individual and they feel just completely different. They literally have said, like, I just see things so differently. And it was because we worked on that gut health or calming the body down. I also love how you mention this like self-critical aspect because even when we're working, I'm sure you've seen this, like even in the weight loss space or, food space, there's so much criticism, there's so much guilt, shame around it. And when we can really shift that to self-compassion, we also see gut changes. We also see weight loss. We see these things happen because we've literally changed that internal dialogue, which the body hears, which I think is a very interesting concept to think about. Like, the first time I heard that was like, oh shit, like the body does hear that. But it was so disconnected for me of like, oh no, this is just a completely separate thing. My body's not affected by this, but it's always affected by our thoughts.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think we've been taught, or at least with like the medical system, to look at the body as separate entities. Like you go to your primary care physician for an issue and you referred to XYZ for different entities in a way, when in reality, it's all working in a feedback loop. And we can't look at the mind or body as separate when it's really all working together. And this pathway is like a perfect demonstration of that, of how our thoughts directly impact our metabolism.
Oh my gosh. That is a whole new way of looking at, well, health, but also like nutrition. So we have this stress management component that it sounds like it's is huge as it relates to our GI health. What are some other components?
Yeah. Well, there's actually nourishing your gut microbiome, which is another one that we could unpack. So, with this, I'm sure some of the listeners have heard at least about like the importance of probiotics and prebiotics, so we can break down what all of that means as well. So, revisiting the gut microbiome itself. So, again, that's in our large and our small intestine. That's going to be the host of the majority of the bacteria that's in within our body. And again, that we know that the gut microbiome has a ton of different essential functions. So, again, optimizing digestion, supporting your immune system, your metabolic function, your mood, your brain health, and reducing inflammation. So, the overall goal with nourishing your gut or gut health in general, I think, is maintaining a diverse amount of good bacteria and having that thrive in an ecosystem where it has the nutrients for those to work optimally as well, because they are live bacteria, even though they're microscopic, but they are like live beings as well. And everyone's microbiome is different. So the gut in your gut specifically is going to be different compared to your neighbors or your family members. And this is all based off of different foods that we eat, the environment that we are in, and also like different lifestyle factors. So, other things that can impact your gut directly, aside from stress, would be things like a poor diet, heavy antibiotic use or medications, infections, and then maybe lifestyle factors. So, like environmental toxins or exposure or something like that. But there are ways to ensure that you're getting plenty of good microbes into your gut. And one of that is through fermented foods. So, fermented foods, meaning things that have probiotics, which are, again, those good bugs, often referred to as live or active cultures, or you might see a product that says it's cultured or that it contains probiotics. But thinking of these as often items that are like fermented, pickled. So, like sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha are all fermented foods. We have probiotic yogurts or kefir. Miso, tempeh, and natto are like fermented versions of soybean. Also, cottage cheese is another good source of probiotics. And I think that's the gist of it, unless I missed any. I'm sure there's more.
Yeah, I mean, there's such an array. And on this one, though, I want to just highlight that these probiotic sources, a lot of them you can get in the form of like dairy, or there's a lot of milk-based fermentation, fermented products that you can get. But I want people to know, like, definitely still read the label on this for and not like purchase the ones that have a lot of added sugar. We want as clean as possible. Otherwise, we're not helping the microbiome. I see this a lot when they're adding in food, like fermented foods, but they're also adding in a lot of added sugar. So when we're doing this, like, we want as whole foods as possible, even if it is fermented.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up too, because I think, well, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that we can go down about ingredients and how that disrupts the gut microbiome too. But I think with fermented products, the microbes do thrive off of the natural sugars and the prebiotics as well, which we'll get to. So I think naturally there's going to be some amount of sugar, but it's making sure that it's not an excessive amount of added sugar, making it more of like a dessert or something that's going to throw off your blood sugar. So I think looking for maybe yogurt options that have no added sugar while there's still naturally some occurring sugar, which just happens with lactose.
Yeah. Okay, so these prebiotics, which I kind of feel like are going to have their like coming up, if you will, in 2026, which with the goal of like the conversation around fiber really coming into the mix. But tell me more about these like prebiotics. What foods have those in them?
Yeah, so prebiotics are basically, it's a fancy word for fiber, but another way that it helps fuel the microbiome and also with just GI motility, being able to bulk your stool and help move things out as well. But whole foods wise, they're going to be coming mainly from carbohydrate sources. So pretty much anything in the fruit and vegetable category or sources of like whole wheat, whole grain products. So a few examples would be like asparagus, bananas, oatmeal, beans, garlic, onion, soybeans, wheat products, etc. But a lot of those plant-derived sources can be a good source of prebiotic fiber.
So this is why carbohydrates are necessary in someone's diet is because they actually are those sources of prebiotics and can be so helpful in balancing blood sugar, losing weight, but overall gut health or just, GI health as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll never understand why carbs got a bad rep. I mean, I think when we're talking about maybe ultra processed foods, but in general, we need like half our day at least be coming from carb sources. Like that is the gas in our tank.
Yes. And also really whole food sources, right? Like our beans, our whole grains, fruits, veggies, like those when we're saying carbohydrates in the diet, that's what we're referring to, not those ultra processed foods.
Yeah. I love that beans have been trending recently too, and sweet potatoes. It's good to see.
Yeah. Okay, so that's like the food side. So managing the stress, having those pre and probiotics. It sounds like from food-based sources, but do you recommend like supplementation or how do you kind of work that?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I'm not anti-supplements, but I think I just take it based off the name. I mean, supplement meaning in addition to. So if you're not getting a certain nutrient from your diet on the regular, then I would recommend them. But with probiotics specifically, I mean, they're like a little ecosystem within their own. So I think when we're thinking about those little bugs being active, live active cultures, they're going to thrive best in that temperature controlled environment where they have the acidity and the yeast and the sugars to thrive off and be live and active cultures versus when we're talking about maybe a dehydrated capsule that's been on the shelf for we don't know how long. And the other thing with supplements, they're not regulated by the FDA. So it's just making sure that you have a good brand that has been third party tested or has some level of enhanced testing to ensure that it's actually going to work is a whole nother thing too with that.
Yeah.
I think I don't think there's a supplement that's like a quick fix in a way. I'd say it's really just getting in a nutrient dense whole food diet and then getting a source of that good bacteria once a day. And then also going back to that diversity, getting it from multiple sources. So whether that's a different brand of yogurt each week or trying out different kombuchas or fermented foods, or even if you're dairy free, they still make the soy based or coconut based options that have those live and active cultures still.
So, I mean, they are so important. And one of the things that, well, you mentioned, well, we talked a little bit about before recording is how these gut bacteria are also really helpful for hormone regulation in being able, particularly for like the endocrine system. So why and how are they helpful in hormone regulation? Because I mean, I would say like most people don't even think about that when they're thinking about gut health, like how it's connected to different hormones, but how is it?
Yeah, I think it's all kind of looking at it how it has like a domino effect on each other. So we know that if the gut is not at ease, that's going to throw off our mental health. So then that could literally rise our cortisol, which kind of has a relay on the rest of our hormones too. And then gut bacteria also help metabolize certain hormones and precursors for like estrogen and cortisol and thyroid hormones. So basically the vibes of your entire endocrine system as well. I'd say it's like the master regulator of all of our different body systems in a way. So I think it's just essential for every aspect of your life to make sure that you're nourishing your gut microbiome.
Yeah, I laugh because one, I so agree. And two, like I always like try to envision like how our body is talking to us. And oftentimes it's like pretty like snarky of like, okay, well, you're not giving me what I need, so I'm not going to give you what you need, right? Like it's kind of like this conversation. But I literally think of like the gut as like this hub for sending things like everywhere, which it is. But it basically tells like the rest of our system like what to do with the food that we consume. And I think that's so important to like highlight of yes, like you are signaling things to your body based on the foods that you consume and also other lifestyle factors. And your body needs those nutrients in order to communicate to your other systems, hey, do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of that too, when there's an imbalance with this relating to hormones too, if your gut's thrown off, it's going to impact your energy production or impact your cravings and your blood sugar and your hunger and fullness cues as well.
Yeah. So like everything.
Much.
Okay. So yeah, so there's those are like the foods that we should eat. What are some foods that people should be mindful of to maybe like do you say like eliminate certain foods or like these foods are a no-no or is it about like moderation? Like what's your stance on that?
Yeah, I think it's varies from person to person. Like again, everyone's gut microbiome is different, and then we all have different dietary needs. So I think it's hard to say specifically like this is a no for everyone or this is a yes for everyone. But I do like to educate on ingredient awareness as well. I think with a lot of packaged goods or processed foods, there's a lot of sneaky ingredients that can be adding to gut inflammation or microbiome disruption. So, what I usually like to get into is maybe not looking at the nutrition facts label just by itself, but also looking at the ingredients of a product when you're buying a processed food. So, a common one being seed oils, which has been a hot topic lately, I feel like on social media at least. And it's not that those are inherently bad, it's just the processing and how it's processed. It's throwing off the ratio of omega 3s to omega 6, so like healthy fat imbalances. And when we're having more of these ultra processed oils, like a vegetable oil blend, a canola oil, or like a soybean oil, etc., or like in high amounts, they're highly refined and they can strip away beneficial nutrients and introduce harmful compounds that can contribute to inflammation. And we know that the gut does not like inflammation. So I think minimizing this when you can is important. And again, not to be like fear mongering about food ingredients or products and whatnot too, but just I think as a consumer, you deserve to know what you're consuming and to have that understanding to kind of create your own boundaries with food. So with seed oil specifically, I think 9 times out of 10, when you go out to eat, you're going to be exposed to one of these. And I don't think that's worth stressing about. But at home, on the contrary, I think it's worth it to not cook with these oils, but maybe use an olive oil or avocado oil, coconut oil, etc., just so you're minimizing exposure as much as you can. And then another one is artificial sweeteners. So I think we see this a lot in like health food alternatives, things that have no added sugar, but in reality, they're using these chemical compounds to add in as a sweetener. And again, not to demonize these, I think they have their purpose as well for maybe blood sugar management or quote unquote healthier alternatives, but they do directly disrupt the gut microbiome. So things that have aspartame or neotame, advantame. Another keyword with that is like ending in ame, or sucralose, which is Splenda, is a common one. So where we know that when we have these in excessive amounts, it literally causes diarrhea or has like a laxative effect and also can basically give you like the bubble guts, which is not super fun. And there's been some studies that these can affect insulin sensitivity, or we know that just with how sweet that they are going to increase your cravings for sweet foods. So another thing to be mindful of with using those in excessive amounts, but also just how they directly impact your gut microbiome. So if anything, too, I'm big on maybe using more natural sugars like a honey or coconut sugar, brown sugar, even maple syrup. Stevia or monk fruit are still more of the natural non-nutritive sweeteners as well. But with those, you still just have to look out for it because there's also been times where I've literally bought a box of stevia and I checked the back after and it had urethral in it. So I was bamboozled. But
Yeah.
that just checking for those too. Could keep going too, but with like the artificial flavors and food dyes. I mean, basically with that in summary, I usually tell my clients if we see a Crayola color, like a red, yellow, or like blue lake, whatever, or a number, things that don't look like food, it's probably the best to steer clear of majority of the time. And again, just defining what your personal boundaries are with those and just knowing that they may be impacting your gut microbiome.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you said as far as like artificial sweeteners or sugar alcohols. I'm also a diabetes educator, and I see this often just in the diabetes space of a lot of individuals, eating like sugar-free this and that, and they're having a lot of GI discomfort along with like some other things, but they're also seeing it as like a free food. And so oftentimes there's also an overconsumption of it, which from a weight perspective, we're still looking at how much are you having? We're still looking at serving sizes. And just because it's sugar free doesn't mean it's carb free. So those are the things like where we can really provide education and information to the individual so that they can feel their best. But that is so common with artificial sweeteners, just across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just occurred to me too, I totally forgot, but another big one too is thickening agents. So with these, I think in a lot of health food alternatives, they use it to mimic consistency, especially with like gluten-free options. Or if something is like fat-free or lower in fat, they'll use these thickening agents to mimic the consistency of like the normal product. But with this, they're including things like guar gum, xanth gum, cellulose gum, locust bean gum. I think a keyword with that is gum. And the way I explain it is like, when you swallow a piece of bubble gum, it doesn't get digested. So it's kind of like the same concept with that. Carrageenan's a big one too. And again, these are all like thickening agents or preservatives. They're things that are difficult to avoid 100% of the time. But I think just being mindful of when you can choose products like 80% of the time that don't consume these is going to help support your gut microbiome more than not.
Yeah. Yep. Like I love the 80-20 rule, like 80% whole nourishing food, 20% fun and flexible, just because the reality of life is there. And I love what you're saying as far as like, yeah, we want you to be know what's in your food and also not afraid of what's in your food.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm not saying too, I'm like, I eat these things sometimes, but I'm just mindful of that it's not in my pantry all the time. Or if it's for a special occasion, like I'm traveling, I'm not stressed about it. Or if there's no option without it, I'm not going to not eat because of it. It's just all in moderation. And I think what I'm doing at home more of the time is more impactful than the one-off things that you eat here and there.
Mhm. Is there is there anything else that you would say like so if someone's really having a lot of GI symptoms just in general. Like we talked about nervous system regulation. We talked about pre and probiotics as far as like foods to add in. What else would you say is like that third thing that would be or you that you've seen have the most impact on someone?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's a few more actually. Being well hydrated is a big one. So we know that if we're not having enough water, that's going to literally back us up because our body needs the fluid to help move the stool out. So constipation, 9 times out of 10, it's like, did you drink enough water?
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe
Yeah.
not. Or two, if you're dealing with more bowel urgency and diarrhea, just making sure that you're replenishing that with adequate fluids too, because you're losing more from that. Say another big one is adequate sleep. Sleep is so crucial for overall health, and I think sleep is literally slept on and not talked about enough. But it's so important for like brain function and immune function, and it's literally like your body hitting the reset button every night. So if you're not getting, I'd say 8, I mean, seven's even flexible, but if you're not getting good quality rest, that's going to directly impact your gut health as well. And we know that when you don't get enough sleep, this impacts your blood sugar and your hunger and fullness cues and your immune system. So again, literally everything. So sleep is a big one too.
Yeah. Which is a very new, I think, concept. Like, so I recorded like the podcast right before you. We talked about these areas of your or the realms of well-being and how they're this also matters, right? Like food is super important, and certainly we want to support you in having a really, strong, nourishing, fueling diet. And these other areas definitely impact the food that you eat and also how it's metabolized. So we want to be able to support you in all of this. So, okay, just out of curiosity, with the increased usage of GLP-1s, how is that impacting gut health? Or if someone's taking or on a GLP-1, what are some things they should be thinking about to support their gut health?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think with the GLP-1s, well, we know that the common side effects do cause a lot of GI distress, like more constipation or diarrhea as well, or just stomach pain, bloating, gas, all the fun stuff. So just being mindful of that as well when you start one, but also too, just the risk of deficiencies. So with it directly impacting your hunger cues, if you're at risk for not consuming enough overall, that's going to put a lot of stress on your metabolism too. And again, we know how this just all has a huge domino effect on one body system to another. So I think when there's a lack of nutrients, that's going to impact our energy production or our mental health and our mood and inflammation. The list goes on. So I think just making sure that you're finding ways to get in the nutrients too, even though your appetite is more suppressed. Maybe that's through liquid nutrition or smaller, more frequent like meals and snacks just to get in enough so you're not eating below your adequate needs or like your BMR. Just so we're ensuring that we're not losing any key nutrients or you're not losing too much weight that's sabotaging your metabolism in the long term too.
Yeah. And I love, like, I mean, it's a tool, right? Like any medication, it's a tool. And we still have to have these other lifestyle factors to be able to see the most success possible of where you are nourishing your body, you are moving your body, you are getting that sleep, you are getting that hydration. These are still all requirements on the medication or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally see it as a way that's great to kickstart your journey when you're needing help in maybe specific areas, but also just not completely ignoring them too, and just maybe just eating minimally, but we still have to focus on nourishment and all these different food groups and maybe having a balanced plate and making sure that you're still getting in your probiotic foods and your plant-based prebiotic foods and plenty of protein to prevent muscle wasting, which happens often with that as well. Your omega-3s, and then on top of that, staying well hydrated, implementing exercise is always going to be great as well, and adequate sleep, hydration, basically all of the different realms I'm sure you discussed.
Well, it's interesting. Like, and we didn't really hit on this, but I found also like walking is super helpful for GI discomfort. Even like what is it, the I love you massage that you can really like massage your stomach to really help relax it. I mean, there's so many different things that you can do. So for someone tuning in, they're like, okay, I really want to work on my gut health in 2026, right? Like, or they're like, man, I have all these symptoms and I need to start really doing something with them. What are some quick things that they can do, like start implementing now to really see some changes?
Yeah, I think a good start is always making sure that you're having maybe one probiotic rich food a day and plenty of fiber. So at least 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. This is not going to be simple whatsoever. I'm just going to keep going. It's like basically everything needs to be in check. Your sleep, your stress, staying well hydrated, movement's a big one too. I think what made the most impact on me as well is again going back to those nervous system regulation tools and exercise as well. I forgot to mention that I'm also a personal trainer, and I decided to do that when I was studying nutrition in college just because of how much exercise helped with my symptoms as well. So movement helps with literal motility with your GI tract as well, but also it's a great tool for stress management. So I'd say doing some sort of light movement, whether it's walking, yoga. I know I've gotten to downward dog plenty of times just to like relieve some gas, do something like that. But yeah, movement, sleep, stress management, hydration, well nourishing foods. It's unfortunately not a quick fix.
No, it's not. But also, I'm going to add to that one because this one makes a big difference is making time to actually eat your meal and chew the food. Like so many women tell me like, "Oh, I don't like one skip meals or I like completely forget and I just like have to grab and go." So there's like chaos even in the eating experience. So if you can be able to like sit and enjoy the food and take time with it, it's amazing how quickly some of those symptoms do go down.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up because I totally forgot to mention that as well. But your mealtime frequency plays a huge role in that too. Like if you've gone long periods of times without eating, especially with ADHD, with me and my clients with this too, it's like if you just forgot or you're in a rush or it doesn't sound like a fun time in that moment, like just instead of being disciplined, but maybe framing it as parenting yourself or taking care of your future self or being devoted to your health, like just taking the time to practice mindful eating, slow down, like on your lunch break, actually take a break and don't work through your lunch break. Like just sit with your meal and savor it, chew thoroughly, like take some breaths in between, put the fork down and just be present so you can fully enjoy your meal as well and not rush through and like inhale your food because that's going to make your stomach hurt as well.
Yeah, I'm so guilty of that one. So I it's a hard one, especially when there's so many things to do. Well, okay. So I thank you so much for this conversation. I love it, and I think you're going to help so many people. What are some like ending words that you would like to share just on this topic and in this space?
I think your health is a journey and it gets super overwhelming, especially when we're sitting here talking about how we have to focus on every aspect of our lives. I think just start small, and I'm very big on micro shifts or habit stacking in a way too. Like when we're trying to break down maybe habits that we've had set for years, it's not going to happen overnight. So I think it's probably a big issue too with the fad diets or trying to change everything at once. Like you're so much better off starting small with baby shifts that will add up to big changes over time versus getting overwhelmed and seeing that you need to change everything right then and now. Like, for example, if you go in your pantry and you notice that there's a bunch of additives that are not suitable for your gut health, don't freak out about it. Just wait until you're done with the product and get a new swap the next time you go to the grocery store. So, I guess emphasis on not trying to change everything at once, but just really analyzing what's going to be the most beneficial to start with and being realistic and starting small and building off of those goals. And with that, you'll continue to build more confidence and self-trust and self-esteem with that and more compassion. And it'll be easier to implement all these changes over time, which will evidently make it a lifestyle change versus it feeling like a fad diet or something that you need to be helicoptering over for the rest of your life too, but it'll just become a natural new state of being.
Yeah, I love that. And it takes away so much pressure from having to like go from 0 to 1,000 overnight. And really those small, and I'm air quoting, those small changes add up so much because we actually stay consistent with it and we get to practice it. And like you said, we build that self-trust and self-confidence that you can do this. And that's a big part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And giving yourself grace because it's not going to be perfect all the time. Like even as a dietitian, I love to say I was like, my diet's not perfect. I don't think a perfect diet exists. It's just making it realistic and focusing on, the 80% majority of the time too, but you're still allowed to enjoy the fun foods here and there too, and maybe do the things that aren't quote unquote as health oriented. It doesn't have to be all perfect.
Yeah, because no one is.
Hmm.
Well, Katie, thank you so much for your time and expertise. You can tell that you know your shit, and I'm so glad that you helped us learn today. And I guarantee this is going to help so many women. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
This has been Talkin' Shit. If you like this episode, please give it a thumbs up or leave a review on the Apple Podcast app. If you want more episodes, click that subscribe button. And if you want to learn more, visit healthwins.org. Talkin' Shit is produced and hosted by me, Jana. This production is also made possible by the Community Media Access Collaborative. Learn more at cmac.tv. See you next time.